Cool. Hey everyone, my name is Mehak Vohra. I'm the founder and CEO of SkillBank. We are a marketing school that is completely free up front. Instead of taking a generalized approach to teaching marketing, we take a very niche approach to marketing. So we just teach currently paid media, and our whole program helps people land media buying roles at agencies and at tech startups. I started the company back in 2019 after doing marketing consulting for 4.5 years. And I personally just saw that there was a really big gap between what my friends were learning in marketing school and what I learned after I dropped out of college and started doing consulting for agencies and startups out in San Francisco. So yeah, super excited to talk with you guys today about SkillBank, what we're working on, what's up next for marketing education, and where we see our company going.
Yeah, I guess as a next step, I know that the topic of today's chat is going to be about project-based learning. It looks like he's coming back in. But yeah, would love to hear just a little bit about your interest in that topic and kind of how monumental it's proven to be for learners that you've worked with.
The really interesting thing about marketing, and I would actually say it's very similar to even programming, you can sit in a classroom all day and have a professor talk to you about how to do marketing and what the rules are and how the platforms work, but really you're not going to actually understand how to set up campaigns or how to do marketing without getting your feet wet. So with SkillBank, the way that we structure every single week is every week is a project that the students then pitch to companies. So by the end of the program, they've gotten not just experience building out projects and doing what we're teaching in class, but they're also learning how to interview well. Because whenever you're going into a marketing interview, it's not like, I think with programming, if you know how to code, it's very easy to actually look at someone's code and say, hey, this person's a good programmer or they're not. With marketing, there's that extra layer on top of it where they want to see that you can actually share your ideas in a succinct format. You can clearly get across what you're trying to say. And we really hone that within our program and get our students that experience. So whenever they're going into that interview process, they can actually showcase, hey, not only is this my portfolio, but our students also know how to do X, X, and X, and they can share that.
Yeah, and Mehak, one of the things that I really loved about the conversation we had on the podcast, God, it was almost a year ago now, and specifically how you talked about how you got the idea for SkillBank, how you dropped out of Purdue, and you saw this kind of gap in education that you wanted to go fill, and decided to go ahead and build your own online school and largely bootstrapping it from scratch. And that journey has been so fun to watch from the sidelines. Maybe you can share a little bit more about that kind of founding story, and then the key insight that you kind of had that made you realize, like, hey, like, this is something that's missing in the market that we need, that people in this industry need.
Yeah, absolutely. My story back in 2014, I was studying computer science at Purdue University. I found I was learning a lot more actually going to hackathons on the weekend and building projects on my own. And after my freshman year of college, I came out to San Francisco for the Teal Fellowship Conference, and I met a bunch of people that had dropped out of college and had actually built a career for themselves without having to go and get that degree. And that was fascinating to me because I grew up in a very traditional Indian family. So the idea of just not even going to college was such a stretch. And I remember coming back home from this conference and saying to my parents, like, look, I don't think I'm learning anything in college right now. I already know how to code. I've been going to these hackathons. Like, recruiters, I'm sure at Facebook or Google or any of these companies would love to work with me. What if I took 6 months off and tried to just do things on my own? And my parents were like, absolutely not. So I spent the next year in college just doing consulting work and trying to prove to my parents that I could start to make a living on my own. And finally, after my sophomore year, they were like, all right, fine. We'll let you leave for 6 months, go to San Francisco, try to figure it out. And if you can't, you need to come back to college. And within that time period, I just networked a lot. I got to meet a lot of people. I got to build up my portfolio. And 4.5 years later, I was running this little consulting agency where we did website building and primarily actually LinkedIn marketing for startups and VCs. And within this time, my friends graduated from college. They started working, and there was two thought processes running in the back of my mind. The first thing was that, wow, I am light years ahead of my friends right now that have graduated from college. I've just made so many more connections out here in San Francisco. I feel like I'm a lot farther ahead. I feel like I've matured a lot quicker. But there was the other part of it where within my consulting thing, I really tried to streamline everything. I wanted to create a scalable agency. And we tried to do this through productizing our services. We created a platform that our clients could log into. But after doing it for 2.5 years, I realized that the most that we could scale it was just through the amount of writers that we had to actually create the content. So I realized if we couldn't scale our services, because every client at the end of the day was this edge case, maybe we could scale the people that were giving the services and create a scalable agency of sorts in that way. And that's what led me into looking at, okay, how can we just flip this model on its head? And I was really fascinated with income share agreements. I started to see that there were boot camps that were training people in India how to become engineers and then placing them here in the US. Lambda School was starting to grow. And there was really no company in the space that was doing it well for marketing. And that's what led me into starting on Delta, which is now SkillBank. Yeah, that's the story and how we got to building the company that we have today.
Amazing. And Mehak, one of the things that you said, it was that you used to go to these hackathons. That is literally where I lived in college, at hackathons. And this is a story that I share a lot as well, is that when it comes to, specifically picking up skills, for me, it was never in a classroom. Like, it was just experimenting and learning in a free form environment where I was working on projects. So I started obviously in high school, going to YouTube, learning to build apps. But once I got to college, I discovered these things called hackathons. And I know you talked about, running and being involved with Boilermake, which is Purdue's hackathon. I went to all of those and I had such a blast, but it just kind of clicked for me. It was like, hey, like, this hackathon is basically this for people who don't know, it's essentially kind of a 24-hour to 48-hour event that takes place on a weekend at college campuses, and computer science students, doesn't have to be computer science students. Anybody can just come together and just build something. Like, you have an idea for an app, a project, or anything, you can just build it. And I would just do these every weekend. And I learned probably more in these hackathons than I did in the classroom. And to this day, people like, people ask me, like, how did I land my first job as a software engineer? It was purely through hackathons, through networking with recruiters and other smart CS people, and just learning to build. And it's just like one of those things that it's like, there's not, at the end of the day, nothing is going to help you retain knowledge more than just getting your hands on. And I think that's something that, again, is just so missing in the universities and campuses. And I'm so happy to see programs like yours really kind of investing in it from day one.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's crazy. We probably were in the same room before we got into startup stuff. Because I also did a bunch of hackathons.
Yeah, no, 100%. One of the things I'd love is, how do you SkillBank, which was, I guess, formerly on Delta, was, how did you go about designing that student experience? Like, what did you want the curriculum to look like, and how did you know that it was going to adequately prepare students for a job in marketing afterwards?
So when we first started SkillBank, I took a very generalized approach to growth marketing. It was just, all right, in 12 weeks, we're going to teach you paid media. We're going to teach you SEO, organic, just like everything across the board. And we did that with the first couple of cohorts and found that the jack of all trades students just were having a lot of trouble landing jobs. So we realized, all right, we needed to go back to the drawing board and figure out a system that would actually like make them look really enticing to employers, and how could we get them experience really quickly and then get them into that next role. So two things happened. The first thing was we niched down the program. So instead of teaching everything in 12 weeks, we extended the program out to 15 weeks and then just started teaching paid media. So how to do Facebook ads and Google ads. And that's the only course we offer right now. And then the other thing was we really started to put an emphasis on projects. And like I was talking about earlier, the projects did two things for us. It gave them hands-on experience in the same way that going to a hackathon gave us experience with building something. But the other thing that it does is it gives the students an opportunity to learn how to actually pitch their projects and actually show their ideas. So the way that our program is structured is Mondays and Tuesdays, they have class. Wednesdays they have career day, and then Thursdays is project pitch day, where we put them into groups. If the groups are bigger, if it's a smaller class, they'll all be in the same room, and they pitch their project to the rest of the class and say, "This is what I learned. Like this is the company that I chose. This is what we did. These are the results that we saw." And after doing that 7 or 8 times, it's crazy to see the results of people from week 1 where they can like barely formulate that, like, oh, this was an objective or a campaign that we put up, to like the final week. It's like, oh yeah, like I was running these negative keywords and then we found this out and like, this is what we're going to do next. And it's really fascinating to see just that growth, not just in terms of their knowledge, but also just in terms of how they share their ideas.
Yeah, reminded of as you say that is we've had a lot of conversations with Ryan Craig, who's one of my favorite authors, who wrote College Disrupted, A New You, and one of our conversations on the podcast where he talked about this idea where he really thought that career services on campuses were just like kind of a waste of space and time, mostly because they didn't really do much for students in terms of delivering outcomes. And also it was this idea of it's an afterthought. With at least with colleges, it's like, hey, we'll spend 99% on education, and then at the end, like, okay, and maybe we have like a few like tools and resources for you to land jobs. But a better approach, and we kind of brainstormed this together, is this idea is like readiness is built into the curriculum from the get-go. And it's not this idea of like, hey, we're going to teach you what you need to know, and then we'll prepare you how to like interview for jobs. If you're doing it right, if you're building your curriculum right, everything you do is preparing you to actually land a job.
Absolutely. 100%. And, I think what people don't realize either is you're not going to learn by just like listening to a professor sit and talk about what they're doing and then like making your resume. I don't think colleges right now aren't incentivized to actually help their students land jobs. They're incentivized for completion. So like what they're going to do is like, how can we just get these students through these classes, get them to see this curriculum, and then, all right, they're on their own after that. Whereas with us, because we're using income share agreements, we have to be aligned with our students, and we have to make sure that we're actually giving them an experience that'll help them land that job in 15 to 20 weeks.
Yeah. And this is kind of the revolution we saw, starting 2017, and with ISA backed programs really taking off, is that you're aligning incentives. And so because again, these they don't earn actually place you in jobs. And this is the funny thing as well, is that like Ryan Craig also in his book, he talks about the employment imperative. And that essentially means that the number one reason that college students go to college in the first place is to be able to land a job. Yet when you actually look at it, like 50% of people coming out of college are either unemployed or working a job that doesn't even require a college degree. It's like, what? And then you're on the hook for paying for this. And the thing that I love about programs like SkillBank is that you get to learn really relevant material from industry experts for of the cost, and in months instead of 4 years. I mean, how long is the SkillBank program?
Yeah, so SkillBank is 15 weeks long, and it's really interesting that you say that. And like we say this to people as well, that we're not a college replacement at SkillBank, but we also don't think that college is necessary. It's one of those things that, like, if you're going to explore and you're going to try different things, I'm really glad that I did those 2 years in college. I got to party, I got to meet people, I got to like really like really hone and like become myself in those years. But also, it didn't prepare me for work. And we're seeing this with a lot of our students now that are coming into our program, that they've gone through college, or they went through college maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And now like they're tired. Like they want to actually land a job. Like they want to start working. They want to upskill. And that's where we come in. And we look at ourselves as just being that bridge and that gap between college or community college, or getting your associate's degree, or maybe just high school, and to the real world, and actually helping you land that next job.
Yeah. And it's also this idea of like these boot camps. It's your education maps to a specific career path. And you can't always say that about college degrees. I mean, like, you go to college, you study philosophy. Where does that end you up? You know, a lot of people say like, oh, you can go to law school from that, you can become a lawyer, but it's so high level. And I think this is one of the reasons boot camps are really taking off, is because like when something like a tragedy like COVID happens, people's jobs are gone. You know, those industries are gone, retail, hospitality, travel, and it's going to take years for them to recover. And so these people don't have years to spend on trying to find new career paths. They need re-education, retraining, reskilling now, so they can start putting food on the table for their families. And these programs empower people to do it, and do it completely from the comfort of their own home. A lot of these programs are completely remote. And at the end of the day, when they get this education, they know exactly what job it funnels into. And that security is just, I think that's makes the education so much more rewarding.
Absolutely. And, you know, we're starting to see even now too, a lot of marketing agencies, they're having a lot of talent troubles. Like, you know, we're partnered with Hawk Media and Disruptive Advertising and a bunch of these really well-known marketing agencies out here in California and the West Coast. And the number one issue they're having right now is, hey, we can take these people out of marketing school and college, but they don't know what we need them to know to actually start placing them in companies. So a lot of them have actually started to build internal schools. So like for 10 to 15 weeks, we'll teach media buying and then hire you out of that. And it's been really fascinating to see that, you know, colleges have had a lot of trouble keeping up with the times, and especially with a field like marketing, where like yesterday something could work, but today it's not, because the platforms are changing so much. It's really important that there's a program that's out there that's actually there to stay on top of the trends, keep a pulse on the industry, and actually help with teaching relevant things to people, so that way they can go in and fit into a job a lot quicker.
One of the things that frustrates me so much is when you actually look at the college curriculum, like any program that actually teaches sales, not one of them that I'm familiar with teaches Salesforce, which is like the number one tool you need to work in sales. And when it comes to marketing, not a single one of the marketing classes I took in Michigan even taught you how to run Facebook ads. And it's these colleges are having such a hard time keeping up with what industry actually needs. And so no wonder they're having such a hard time placing students. Tell me how you guys are able to make sure that you guys are staying relevant with I guess, the latest practices.
Yeah. So the biggest thing for us is we have partners with all of these agencies. So it's meetings with them and their team saying like, students that you are hiring from us, like what are the gaps that they're having? It's an ongoing conversation and a lot of iterations. And you know, it's the one advantage that we have over a coding bootcamp is a coding bootcamp is usually anywhere from like 9 to 15 months long. Whereas with SkillBank, because it's just like, hey, these are the things you just need to like learn it, see how the platforms work, and then get yourself out there. Our iteration cycle is a lot quicker. So like we can put a student through and then see like, all right, what do we need to change? What do we need to fix? And yeah, it's just a lot of conversations, and then also having people from these agencies come in and audit our curriculum. So when we first made our paid media curriculum, we actually hired people on Upwork that were doing consulting work at agencies. We spoke to our partners at these agencies and actually had them go through and take our program and provide notes and feedback. So this curriculum has been very highly influenced by not just like people that are investors in SkillBank, but people that are actually a part of the industry and are doing work today.
That's incredible. And Mehak, I'm starting to realize that I have like so many more questions that we just never got to because we ran out of time. That being said, we really appreciate you coming on. And I think the audience have a chance. There were a couple questions. Okay, so basically somebody was asking, is this essentially Lambda School for marketing? It in a lot of ways, you would say that, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're both ISA programs. Free up front. Our terms are a little bit different, but for the most part, yeah, we're Lambda School for Marketing.
Yeah, and then Arnav asked, how do you go about differentiating from CBCs or like General Assembly or some of the other popular boot camps?
Yeah, so most of those boot camps, like I said, take a very generalized approach to marketing. So General Assembly offers a digital marketing program. We instead say, hey, you can learn generalized marketing on YouTube. We're not trying to just make entry-level talent. We're trying to make the best entry-level talent. And the way that you do that is through teaching niche skills and placing people in niche skills. And then after they land that job, they can branch out within that agency into other fields, or they can come back and take another program for us once we start launching more. But we're only offering paid media right now. And that's why we called ourselves SkillBank, because we're going to start offering a bunch of different skills, not just paid media, SEO, organic, lifecycle marketing, enterprise CRM tools like Salesforce and HubSpot. We're trying to completely own the marketing world.
That's incredible. Mehak, if wants to keep up with you on social media or learn more about SkillBank, how can they do that?
Yeah, so if you want to check out SkillBank or apply to SkillBank, we're joinskillbank.com and also on all socials at joinskillbank. If you want to follow me, it's just at the Mehak Vohra on all social media platforms. Thank you so much, Ish, for having me.
Yeah, likewise. Mehak, talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon, man. Peace.